I recently got back from the USA, as you might tell from my VCon shirt right here. But one thing I realized that even as an accountant, I didn't plan very well when it comes to money and tax deductions while overseas. So let me share some tips with you on things to do when it comes to tax deductions while overseas and money in general while traveling. Hello everyone, my name is Ethan Rushock, and as I just said, I'm going to be talking to you about money while you're overseas, and I'm mainly focusing on the tax deduction side of things, but some more general tips about how you can maybe better manage your money, or maybe even save some money by doing a little bit more planning. And this comes from my recent trip to the USA for VCon, so if you haven't checked out my video on VCon, I'd love for you to go watch that. But I realized I didn't really plan things very well, and you'll hear one story about how I panicked 48 hours out because I realized I hadn't planned well. So I think the clear thing that I realized is that it comes down to three things. It's about planning, understanding, and tracking. So first I'll talk about planning, and this is where I went wrong. I thought I had a card, an ING card that had 0% fees on international transactions, and about 2 days out, I checked and I realized I didn't actually meet the requirements for that the month before. So suddenly I was left in a position where I couldn't use that, well, I could use that card, but I wasn't going to get the 0% fees. And I checked all my other cards and they were all, I think, a flat 3%. So just by doing a bit of planning and moving some money around, I could have saved myself 3% on every transaction. And obviously 3% on every transaction, it all adds up. So when you're spending money, it's either going to come to how you're going to be paying by card or cash. So plan ahead on those. Work out, or do I have a card that's going to be 0% fees? Or what's the way I can reduce the fees? Via a travel card? Have I got a special Visa card that I can use? And then if you're going to use cash, get some cash out before you go. I think that would be my tip, is that I didn't do that. I tried to get American dollars out when I was overseas. I tried at multiple ATMs. The transactions rejected. I tried a different card. That didn't work. Then I tried another ATM at a different airport and that did work. So there's a bit of no pattern to that. I know you might pay some more foreign exchange fees when you're over here, but I paid them at an ATM over there anyway. So my lesson would be get that out. I didn't need a lot of cash because at the end of the day, you use card. A lot of places don't even accept cash. But I did find it handy to have a little bit of US dollars on me. And obviously you need to have an understanding, well, are you just going to one country with one currency? If you're traveling between multiple countries that have all different currencies, you're going to need to do this planning for each one. But then the biggest thing when it comes to tax is, are you traveling for business or is it for personal, or is it a combination of both? And if it's a combination, what's the plan on what's going to be, where are you going to spend the personal expenses, where are you going to spend the business, or is it all going to be mixed in? And if it's mixed in, how are you going to track this? And this was probably where I went wrong, is that I did use the same card for everything. And then when I was coming back, I was trying to go through which ones did I have receipts for, which ones were business, which one was personal. Whereas it would have been a lot easier if I just used a personal card and a business card and kept the things separate, because I think it would have made things a lot easier. And then I could have easily gone, okay, here's all the business expenses. Do I have all the receipts to back that up? Yes, these are all the personal. I don't need to worry about those. But when you've got them mixed in together, especially if you're mixing cash and card, it can become quite complex. So one of the biggest things if you're traveling overseas for work is you need to understand, well, what is claimable? Now that's going to be different probably if you're running a business or if you're an employee. But you need to have an idea before you go, so then you understand, well, what records do you need to keep? And that'll play into that planning part. But this is the understanding part. Understanding what can I claim while I'm traveling. Now, this is going to vary a lot, like I said, depending on what you're traveling for, what percentage is business, what percentage is personal. Go to the ATO website or give them a call, talk to your tax agent to find out how it's going to work for your particular situation. But, understanding, well, okay, if I've got my partner traveling with me, therefore, am I only going to claim a percentage of hotels, for instance, or travel? How long is maybe the conference you're going to versus the whole trip? Are you going to other towns or other cities outside of where your business purposes are? Or is the whole lot business purposes? By having an understanding of what that is, then you can come back to that plan we talked about before of, okay, I'm going to use this card for these purposes because these are personal. I'll use this card for the business related transactions. And then it comes down to tracking all this. How are you going to keep track, especially for the business transactions? That's what, from a tax point of view, you're going to want to make sure you've got those. And where it can get quite complex is when we start talking about fees and foreign currency exchange rates and all these different things that you're wanting to report the Australian dollar amount in your tax return. So you're going to need to know the Australian dollar amount of these things and the total amount. And something I found a little bit difficult when I got back is trying to match up a receipt that was in US dollars versus which transaction was that for, because names on receipts don't always match what comes out of a bank account. And then by the time you add in maybe a tip or a foreign currency fee, or maybe it's tax, like in America, the tax doesn't always display clearly on the receipts. You're trying to add all these things in and try and match things up. And especially when you've got a mix of business and personal, it can become quite complex. So I really think from a tracking point of view is making sure you're using separate a card or separate cash or however you want to sort it out for business versus personal. It's going to make it simple. Keep all your receipts. That's going to make life a lot easier because at least then you can start matching up, what receipt matches to this. And then it's going to depend whether you're an employee or whether you're running a business as to how you track from there. For instance, for me, I'm employed by my own company and I have Xero, so I was able to do expense claims via their app. So I would scan the receipt, put that through, so I understood that. But if you're an employee, you might want to check with your workplace what format do you need to keep these receipts in or these expenses in before you go, so you have a good understanding of what records do you actually need to keep. And obviously with all this, you need to remember exchange rates. It's going to mess you around when you're looking at the price of things. So understanding, what is the exchange rate? Maybe have some basic, what is $10 in America going to be in Australian dollars? So you can easily do some quick conversions when you're deciding one is worth me paying for that. Or two, then when you're trying to match up receipts to expenses, understand that. And especially if you're jumping between multiple currencies across multiple countries, you definitely really want to have a good idea of, what is the exchange rate each way, so you understand, are you getting value for money or are you tracking the right things when you're trying to match them up afterwards? So I think it all comes down to those three things. Make sure you got a plan of, where you're going to access money from. Is it going to be cards, is it cash, is it business, is it personal? Understand what's claimable before you go so you know what you're keeping. Depending on your trip, your taxi or Uber fee is going to be claimable. Therefore, if they are, to keep those things or, maybe track them. Uber have obviously got receipts through their app, etc. But if they're not claimable, then you don't have to stress about it from a business tax point of view. And then from there, you're going to have a system to track. Like I said, if you're using separate cards, that might make it easier. Obviously, keeping receipts makes it easier. If you can get receipts emailed to you or text message to you, that might make life a little bit easier because you've got digital copies rather than relying on paper receipts. If you've got paper receipts, where are you going to store them while you're traveling? Are you going to be processing these while you're away, or putting them in an envelope and then sorting them when you get back? Having an understanding of all that will make your travel life much easier. And I think also it will save you dollars in the long run, because whether it's saving on an exchange rate or saving on fees or claiming all the deductions you're eligible for and therefore saving on tax, all of these things contribute to you saving money, which when you're traveling, saving money is always a good thing. I hope that's been helpful. Make sure you drop a comment on where was the last business trip that you took. Mine was clearly to the USA for VCon. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Make sure you go check out some of the other content on my channel. I appreciate you watching, and I'll talk to you again on the next video.